Dear friends, I would like to welcome you to this interview that we are conducting here at the Magyar Reformed Church in New Brunswick. And we are hoping that we will be able to have other conversations with our friends and members from our congregation. And I'm delighted to welcome Pamela Wasserman, who is here with us. It was about maybe a couple of months ago when we had a conversation over the phone. And as she was actually asking about how the church's life is taking place, and she also was bringing back some nice memories and telling me stories about her personal life and also her life that is related to our community, and also about her grandparents, even great-grandparents who were members of this congregation. It felt like a wonderful opportunity to ask her if she would be willing to share her story with us. So without further ado, I would like to ask Pam if you would be kind to introduce yourself to us and just tell about your story and also about your family story that is related to our fellowship and community.
Well, thank you for inviting me and being part of this program. My name is Pamela Wasserman. I grew up in the Hungarian neighborhood. I grew up on Harvey Street, several blocks away. Both of my parents are Hungarian. My mother was born in Hungary, and my father is American-born. My mother, Jean Fares Kohut, came to America when she was 12 years old. She came with her mother, Susanna Kunz, and grandmother, Sophia S.A. Kunz, and my great-grandmother was from Tarpa area. She was a direct descendant of S.A. Tomasz, who was a freedom fighter from Tarpa. He was a brigadier general under Rákóczi in the early 1700s. Although he was born a serf, he rose to noble rank. Both great-grandparents were Fares, Carolee and Orban Veronica. My grandfather was Sándor Fares, who was last seen in Odessa probably in around 1915. My father, Louis Kohut, was born in Highland Park. He was American-born. My fraternal grandmother was Erzsébet Kohut, and the area that she was from Kishdobron, and she lived on Hamilton Street, not far from Harvey and Plum and Division. My grandfather, John Kohut's family, was from Zuret, and my other family, fraternal family members are Nagys, and Lagozas. When my family arrived from Hungary, my grandmother and great-grandmother attended the Byron Street Baptist Church, from where my mother had her confirmation, later then joining into the Hungarian Reformed Church.
And for those of our dear friends who are listening to Pam's words, the reason why Pam's great-grandmother and grandmother were attending the Byron Street Church probably was because our congregation was as a community born as a part of that Presbyterian community, and then eventually purchased the sanctuary that we are talking in now. So I think that's probably why your mother was
yes, I'm sure,
confirmed at the Byron Street Church back in those days.
When my grandmother and great-grandmother came to the church, they were very active in the Ladies' Society for many, many, many years.
Yes, I think you were showing me some pictures that showed them in the 30s.
Yes,
in the
1931.
Ladies Association. Yes.
So they were a very active part of the church. My father belonged to the High Street Baptist Church. But they had a Hungarian community there, and
Yes.
I remember them when the early days of the festival. They had a large population that would always come there, and I think their hall to fame was they used to make strawberry shortcake, and everybody came there for their strawberry shortcake.
And you mentioned to me that you started really your life here in the congregation and attended Sunday school and
Yes, I did. I was baptized in the church in 1943, attended Sunday school, church choir, confirmation, many of the activities. When I was young, and the minister was Reverend Kosha. Reverend Kosha's wife, in one summer, would teach the young girls how to crochet. So that was very interesting. We also had some Sunday school in the summer, some summer activities. And some of the children that I can remember being part of and friends at within the church was Eleanor Pujani and Irene Levesh. Those are the two that I can remember. David Engelade also was within our age group.
yes, I know that you mentioned that you have your mom's address book, and it was so nice to see that she actually had the phone numbers of Reverend Rutsey, Reverend Bertalan, even Reverend Kosha.
Yes.
And I know that you mentioned some names that mean a lot to quite a few of our members. Would you mention some of the names that your
Yes,
mom was in touch with?
I will be happy to. In preparing for this little interview, I went and I still have my mother's address book, and some of the names that I could remember and I took from her book were Betty Ungalade, Mary Andrico, Elsie Budo, Esther Kumundi, Mary Molnar, Irene Levesh, Jane Nauer, Julie Grisler, Irene Baldeswire, and there's so many, many more that I remember her, as she was very involved in the Ladies Guild and the women that would be in the guild, who would make noodles, who would make stuffed cabbage, who would come and make kiflis, and be very involved in the group.
So I remember when I arrived at the congregation, your mom was already living at the Parker assisted living, and every time when we had a chance to visit with her and converse with her, she was telling about how she still kept in touch with her relatives back from Hungary and writing letters, and I know that she had these beautiful memorabilia that connected her and to Hungary, and she was very proud of her heritage. I know that she also loved to do some embroidery, and as a matter of fact, I believe you brought a piece
Yes,
with
I
you.
have, and I'd be more than happy to show it.
If you would, that would be
Yes.
very nice. I know that her room was filled with a lot of Hungarian embroidery and pieces that were made back. I believe this is a very unique piece where in each square there is a specific Hungarian pattern embroidered. But to understand and know how each and every one of them were prepared separately with separate different threads and methods,
Yes,
it shows her skills and her dedication.
Yes, she had a woman that she would go, I believe, to her home, that would teach her how to do each intricate stitch. So it did take her quite a while, and some of them, they were just absolutely magnificent.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
The coloring and the different symbols of the area. So this is quite a treasure for our family.
Oh, I can imagine. Thank you. Thank you for showing it to us.
You're welcome.
And I know that You also keep in touch and kept in touch with your uh, Hungarian relatives. You also visited them quite a few times.
Yes, we have. I've been to Hungary many times with my mother, specifically to go to the villages and meet the family. Um, Family that lived in Miskolc, and from they would always take us out to Lillefjordet and Edgar, and one day we took a trip to Debrecen and Sarospatek,
Yes, Saros.
the Tokai area, and the other area that we would visit was along the Tiza River, Tarpa and Tivador, Barash Namein, Vitka, and Fethajarmit. Um, we would always take the train from Budapest, and family would pick us up in Nyíregyháza, um, and we would spend maybe even a week, and they would always take us to interesting places to show us around the community. I remember one year we went to a wedding, and my daughter was with me, and my mother, and they were so impressed because my daughter went with them and they were making the noodles for the preparation for the next day. And they were so impressed that that my daughter could make the little chiga noodles. Um, so that was an experience, walking along the street with the bride and groom um, in the ceremony, and then going into the other part of the ceremony in the evening. So those are all very different, exciting memories that will always be with my daughter and myself. Spending time in Budapest, visiting the temples and the synagogues and the museums, and riding the funicular to
Gellért.
the Gellert. So it was all, we love to travel, and I plan on going back with my daughter again. We want to see family. I'm still in correspondence with some of the family that's there. They do speak English, so it makes it a little bit easier. They did travel to the US a couple of years ago, and we're very happy to be here. So we're certainly looking forward to returning at a better time.
So I know that you are a kind of a collector of Hungarian artwork as well.
I do. I've collected the head end, Kalachoy, um, Halahazi. I like the Journée. There's also another maker, Anna Weatherly. So there's several pieces that I like to collect, and my daughter likes them too. So I know they will always stay in the family, and they'll always be treasured, especially the handwork that was given to us as we leave the family visits.
So I know that your mom used to have quite a few beautiful paintings about Hungarian historical events, and as you were mentioning those names, town and village names, Vitka, Fehérgyarmat, Vásárosnamény, it's kind of interesting that quite a few of our members, for those of us who might not know that, quite a few of our members and their ancestors came from the northeastern part of
Okay.
Hungary, from Szatmár megye, Szabolcs County, also from what is part of now Slovakia, and that is still one of the stronger reformed areas of Hungary. So I know that your mom had a connection to quite a few other church members,
Yes.
and you mentioned that your sister, I think, went to school with Matilda Dózsa.
Yes, my sister went to high school and grade school probably with Matilda, and I went to school, Washington School, that used to be on the corner of Lewis Street and French Street, with Eleanor Pujani and Irene Levesh.
Yes, I know that Elinor Ratz, as we know her also.
Right.
She was also a part of the community with her father. They were living here on
Yes,
Somerset Street.
on Summer Street. He was the shoemaker.
Can you remember the Hungarian community from your childhood, or what it was like back then?
The community that I was most familiar with was probably from Front Street to Somerset to Hamilton, from Division down to Bethany. That was really my area that, at that time, especially with going to school, Lewis Street, and I lived on Harvey Street. The community in the area, of course, the high school, St. Peter's High School, which is no longer here. Robert Wood Johnson was then called Middlesex County Hospital. There was the nursing school that was across the street. The High Street Baptist Street on the corner. Then on the Plum Street corner was a little candy store. The factory on the corner of Harvey was a cigar factory, now a senior citizen. There was a playground in the back, in the middle of Harvey Street that we used to play at. Most of our, not like today where children have play dates, most of our playing was our neighborhood children or family or the church. Then there was Gowan's, the Hungarian Athletic Club, the Lutheran Church. There was a florist on Lewis. Going down on Somerset was the Hungarian Foundation. And on on French Street was the Magyar Bank on the corner, Kosher Agency, where my mother had worked, in the real estate area and insurance. And many Hungarian families would come in and send money to families in Hungary. And that was pretty much the area that I was most familiar with. My grandmother did live on Hamilton Street, and my father, at the end of High Street, had his business. He had a sheet metal company right at the end of High Street.
Yes, your mom mentioned that.
Yes. And there was also Sabo's Market, and there was a Pappy's Market, and both of those were meat markets and small provisions.
Yes, I understand there were quite a few butcher shops.
Yes, in the area.
Hungarian butcher shops. And how do you remember the church activities or picnics or gatherings?
With fond memories. The earlier days, we used to have the church picnic was at a gentleman's name was Eisler, Charles Eisler, and we used to go out to his farm in the Shannock Station, the Branchburg area. And Mr. Eisler was a Hungarian that came to America in the early 1900s. He was an engineering entrepreneur that had his manufacturing businesses in Newark, and his main home was in South Orange. And those are always fond memories going out to the farm. Was basically my first introduction to Solona and that wonderful fresh bread with the fat from the bacon rind and cucumbers and onions and salt and all the fixings on top. And the gentleman going into the little hedges looking for a stick to be able to put the bacon on and skewering the top and making sure that the stick had a point so it fit onto the slab of bacon. As far as the amount of people that were there, I would say maybe 40, 50 families. That would just be enjoyable. There would always be music, there'd always be dancing. In the early days of the Hungarian festival, probably in the mid-1975, I always felt that the Magyar Church was the standard for the festival. People would always come here and buy the tickets for the food. They liked the atmosphere of the food. Sometimes there was a a demonstration of dancers. So I was always very proud that people kind of congregated here first before venturing to the other churches.
So I can imagine there were quite a few dinners and
There
other
were
fellowship
always a
events.
lot of, certain dinners to commemorate something. Always remember the long tables with the white tablecloth and the old brown folding chairs, tables being tight because so many people would attend the dinners. So that was always a happy time to be able to enjoy that.
And going back to the what you were mentioning, the Sunday school classes. What were Sunday school education back then when you were growing up here?
I was trying to think about that. They weren't complex. They were just very simple learning sessions with the Bible, and then going into confirmation and being more specific about our religion and our beliefs. I think more I can remember are the little pageants that we did for the holidays, Easter, mostly Christmas holidays, and decorating the church, the tree, Christmas Eve candlelight ceremonies, singing in the choir, learning all the holiday songs. I do remember I did attend Sunday school. We did have our Sunday school pins. Our first year pin was more of a circular pin. Then the second year, if I recall, was more of a wreath that went around the little pin. And then in years after that, you received a little bar, and there were little chains that you attached each year to the bar. So everybody was very proud of their Sunday school pins.
And I'm just looking back to these meaningful years. Can I ask maybe what your Hungarian heritage means to you today, and also what your experience of belonging to the community means to you?
Both of those are really folded into one. I feel that my Hungarian heritage, I'm extremely proud of. The fact that both of my parents are Hungarian. I have to say the one thing that, and I know we've talked about this before, my one regret is the fact that I don't speak Hungarian. There are a few words that I can remember. I can always remember my grandmother having to go to the courthouse because of her laba, and some of the Hungarian food names. But my mother and father had always kept that language for their own private language, not so that my sister and I could understand what they were saying. So I always felt it was their secret language. So that is the one thing that I truly regret. And I had tried many years ago taking courses at Rutgers, and I was going down to the Hungarian Foundation. I was going to take their course, but then COVID. But that's something I still want to plan on doing. But getting back to the fact that being Hungarian and being part of the Hungarian community and the church is so meaningful to me. It has, I would say, made me the person that I am today. The respect for the community, the respect for the people, my religious experiences, although I don't attend church, it's not that it's not with me. It's there. It's part of who I am. It's part of my being. I'm extremely proud and I have a lot of pride in the church. It brings me a lot of joy. You know, walking up the stairs, sitting in a pew, and then following the congregation out was a lifetime experience that is with me, and memories that are very I want to say dedicated to my life.
I think your sense of belonging is something that I feel with many other friends of ours who, even after decades, even if they move farther away, they still
Yes.
keep in touch with the community and with the people. And just in general, I know that they say that nowadays one of the biggest challenges, probably more than ever, is feeling loneliness or feeling isolated, and not only because of this past year and a half, and it was even a bigger challenge, but just in general. So it's good to see that, and good to understand from your life too, that this belonging to a Christian fellowship, to a congregation, and particularly to us, is something that is very meaningful.
Well, I attribute
well.
that a lot to my parents and my upbringing with my parents, seeing the strong beliefs of my mother and her connection to her heritage. And I want my daughter to have the same feeling, which I know that she does. She also has a strong connection and is anxious to get back and visit the country and take her family there also.
Well, thank you so much, Pam, for sharing your story with us, and we wish you God's many blessings on your continuing life for you and for your husband Marvin. It was a pleasure to talk to you, and dear friends, we are hoping that our interviews will continue, and we will learn from others about their experiences and what their belonging to our community means to them. And for now, once again, thank you for joining us, Pam, and God bless you in your
Well,
continuing life.
thank you for inviting me. This has really been my pleasure to participate in what you're doing and bringing the fellowship and the community and the church.